Pete Hammond for Deadline's Contenders documentary and Unscripted. It's kind of funny that I'm saying unscripted because I'm talking to three writers here. The Jimmy Kimmel Live, which we're going to talk about now here. Very excited to have first off Molly McNerney, who is the executive producer and the co-head writer. Hi, Molly.
Hi, how's it going?
Very good. And we also have your co-head writer and supervising producer, Danny Ricker. Hi, Danny.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Good. And supervising producer and writer, Gary Greenberg. Hi, Gary.
Hi, how you doing? Good to see you.
Good, good. Well, welcome to Contenders. Molly, let me start with you. This is always interesting to me to see how the sausage is made on a late night show that you're doing every night. There's so much pressure, I imagine, with it, but you guys make it look so easy when we watch it on the air. It looks so natural, like it's just all made up at that minute, but it clearly isn't. Can you talk about your biggest challenge in taking this on, not only as executive producer on the managerial side, but as co-head writer? Not to mention you're also married to the host, but you know.
That's the most challenging part, that part. Let's see. I think that it is a definite challenging job. It's a grind. I think the biggest challenge is probably just coming up with original content every single night. And it's weird because late night can feel like it's the same, but the day can feel like repetitive because the formula of the day stays the same. The deadlines, you read the news stories in the morning, you put in the joke deadlines, pitch the bits, have rehearsal at the same time, get the scripts in. That can feel repetitive, but the stories we're covering are very different every day. They have started to feel a little like the same in the last few years. I think we could all say there's a big orange elephant in the room that we have been reporting on night after night. And I think finding new ways to do that has luckily been fairly easy because we have so much material to work with every day.
Yeah, the big orange elephant. No, I thought it might have been Gary's wall you were referring to here.
Same here.
This
I
is
sort of.
apricot, by the way.
Danny, what's it like getting the whole writers' room going, and when do you start? What's a typical day like in developing not just the monologue, but everything you have to write, the guest bits? I want to ask you about some specifically, but go ahead and tell me your process, as it were.
Yeah, we start very early. I think probably earlier than most late night shows, maybe even earlier than like Good Morning America. I'm not really sure. It feels like it, but we have a very dedicated writer's assistant named Nick DiLorenzo who gets up at like 3 in the morning and but really starts looking at every news site he can find kind of what our raw materials are going to be for the day. And so those are the big stories. Those are funny angles on those big stories, also some weird little ones that might be in our wheelhouse. And then so we email all our writers at 7 a.m. with this list of our topics for the day. And, that's mostly what we focus on, but we also love when a writer observes something weird out in the world that we can, maybe turn into a good piece of content too. And, we're a topical show, so we do tend to cover the news, but we don't ever want to be totally beholden to what's on CNN to what's going to be on our show. So we try to find a good mix of everything. But our writers all write for 2 hours in the morning from home. So from 7 a.m. to 8:50 a.m. is our deadline, and we turn in material. Jimmy gets probably like 50 pages of material at that point at around 9 a.m. and then he cuts that down to about 3 or 4 pages of material, and that's kind of our kind of opening salvo of material for the day. And then at that point, being a writer on a late night show is exciting. It's stressful, but you think of something in your pajamas at 7:30 in the morning, at your house, and then at 9:30 you start getting calls from a producer and a director, and you start making something, and then we work on it all afternoon until we tape our show at 4:30, and it's crazy that you'd be like, yeah, I thought of something just sitting here at my kitchen table, and couple hours later I'm on a set with actors, and then I'm in an edit bay, and then it's rolling to a live audience at 4:30 in the afternoon. So that's a bit of a overview of how we do it. It's more involved and all that, but that's sort of the abridged version of our process.
It's interesting. And Gary, Jimmy does not hide his political opinions. Now, in the tradition of late night, you never really knew where Johnny Carson stood. He sort of kept politics, personal politics, out of it. Jay Leno, too, and things changed. Now you watch late night, and, it's a very different landscape. And Jimmy's definitely like right in there on that. How does that affect you as a writer and in looking for things and his instructions to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's become a huge thing. If you watch the first decade of our show, we barely talked about politics. And when we did, it was usually like, oh, look, George Bush had trouble opening a door, or Barack Obama wore tan pants. And that was like a big story, and we ran with it. But then when Trump started spewing his vitriol, it was crazy. Like it was like nothing we had ever seen before. And in the beginning, we had no clue that it would last this long. If somebody were to tell us in 2015 that in 2024 it would be half of our monologue every night, that would have been crazy. But it just snowballed and snowballed, and the bigger he got, the more we sort of feel like we need to push against this because it keeps getting crazier. Yeah. And yeah, I remember back in the old days, American Idol would be a quarter of our monologue when it would be on, or just
Bachelor too,
Bachelor, yeah. And now, Trump has sort of forced us to be politicized because you just can't not talk about the insanity that's going on.
It looks to me like Trump is very well aware of this and trying to make it happen in his own weird way, which leads me to a clip I'm going to show you from last week to demonstrate what you guys are up against. So here is a clip from Jimmy Kimmel Live.
Let's go through it again and just do a fact check line by line, starting with stupid Jimmy Kimmel. All right, that part might be true. That's debatable. That's a matter of opinion. Who still hasn't recovered from his horrendous performance and big ratings drop as host of the Academy Awards. Oh, that's weird because I read in the news that the ratings went up this year. Especially when he showed he suffered from TDS, commonly known as Trump derangement syndrome. Well, now that is false. And there's only one person who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. His name is Donald Trump, okay? To the entire world, by reading on air my truth about how bad a job he was doing that night, right before he stumbled through announcing the biggest award of all, Picture of the Year. All right, two things here. Maybe three even. Number one, I didn't present the award for Best Picture. I was the host. The host doesn't present awards. The presenters present the awards, and the person who presented the award was Al Pacino, not me. We are different people. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish I was Al Pacino. I'm just not. He's Al Pacino. I'm me. You'd think he would know that because I'm pretty sure "Say hello to my little friend" is what he said to Stormy Daniels that got him in all this trouble. But I guess maybe all Italians look alike. I don't know. It was a classic choke, one of the biggest ever in show business. Again, not me. And to top it off, he forgot to say the famous and mandatory line, and the winner is not correct. That's not the mandatory line. Also, still not me. Instead, he stammered around as he opened the envelope. Again, I didn't open the envelope. I didn't even touch the envelope. I did not present the award for Best Picture. I am not Al Pacino. Maybe you dreamed this during one of your courtroom siestas? I don't know.
That was brilliant. And it was sort of handed to you, Molly, on a little golden platter.
And it really was. Jimmy, I remember when he saw it in the morning, he was at home. And as you mentioned, we are married. And he said, "Have you looked at your phone?" And he literally did this with his fingers. He goes, "We have a little present." It was truly like watching a child on Christmas morning. I think if Donald Trump had any idea how genuinely happy his insults make Jimmy, he probably wouldn't do them as much because I don't think besides our children being born, I've ever seen him that happy.
And it's so funny. And in his post, he even mentioned you as and I do remember that having talked to you on Oscar night,
Yes.
that you did sort of like say, "Come on, do you ever have to like hold Jimmy back as a producer of the show, not the wife here?" And
Yeah,
just
well, it's funny. I think I hold him back more as his wife and not as his producer, because I think any good producer or good comedy writer would say, this is an amazing opportunity. You should read this and respond to it. But as his wife, I get nervous about backlash or misunderstanding, and I want to be protective of him. So it's really important for me to kind of wear those two hats, but wear them in two different places. We wife at home and be producer and writer at work. And when the wife hat started to come on at the Oscars, I had to quickly take it back off and go with the writers and the producers. And that's when I thank God have people like Danny and Gary and our other supervising producer Josh Holloway, who say, no, this is the right thing to do. And I say, absolutely, you're right. And they were totally right. It was the right thing to do.
Well, and that was a really high pressure situation. I mean, because like it wasn't like that happened in the first 10 minutes of a 3-hour show. I mean, it was literally in the last act of the show, and that was a very big decision, and it was like a very truncated amount of time to have a very important conversation, I feel like. So it was kind of important to hear like everyone's point of view. And it's funny, usually like all of our writers are at these award shows, and we kind of don't end up doing that much. We do a lot of like prep work, months of prep work before, and then we're there for the show just in case something happens. And I feel like this is the one time something actually like happened, and we all got together and started writing, and it was like it was exciting. It was like it felt
we
like live
live
television.
for those moments, and so does Jimmy. Like, we absolutely love those moments. They're very exciting for us. And I just felt more like, oh, we're about to land the plane, can we just make sure it's a soft landing? And it was a risk he took, and it was absolutely worth it. He did the right thing.
More than a few of us had a celebratory drink long before we had to start writing for that moment.
Yeah.
It really
you never
is
know.
We work. I mean, I think we prepare like 3 to 4 months for a show like this. I mean, it's a lot of writing, thousands of jokes. And then I think if you asked anyone at this point, what was the funniest part of the Oscars? It's the part that got written in the last, 8 minutes of the show. But that's exciting for us. And I think too, being late night writers, like we're able to pivot like that, and we love that kind of thing.
And you constantly have to do it. And there's so much more that you guys do on this show too. I mean, the man on the street bits, with the dumbest people on the history of the planet, it seems. A lot of people think, oh, this is set up. This is set up. But it's not set up. Those people are real, right?
100%.
100%. You don't fiddle with that. You just
Never.
find them out there.
Yeah, what's great too is that when Jimmy decided to do the show all those years ago, he said he didn't want to be in any sort of studio lot. He wanted to be right on the street. Because we're right on Hollywood Boulevard, and Hollywood Boulevard, I think, attracts the stupidest people of anybody. I don't know what it is
for America. We kind of get everybody.
Yeah, you're certainly lucky in that regard for that kind of a bit. And I'm also curious about Jimmy's family, cousins, Aunt Chippy, the setups, the practical jokes he does on them in the studio. Is that all real too?
Yes. I think Jimmy's been messing with his family since he was born, and he continues that tradition on the show. He really wants, I think, the audience to feel like part of his life and part of his family. And he happens to have a lot of characters in his family. He has a very funny, curmudgeon-y old Aunt Chippy. He did formerly have a sweet, not so bright Uncle Frank. And he has the sweetest woman in the world who has a very original view of the world, Cousin Mickey. And I'll say exploits those people, but he likes to share them with everyone, and they are completely authentic, genuine experiences with the people in his life.
That's the thing about our show too. It's like, you ask about like, man on the street bits and all these things. Jimmy would rather not do something than fake it, and that's something that I think the writers all, have to learn when they start at the show, which is like nothing on our show is ever faked. I mean, it's like we could spend tons of money on a prank, and if it doesn't go well, we're not going to be like, hey, go back out there and pretend. It's like, hey, it didn't work, we're not going to air it. I mean, I think, and that's a an aspect of authenticity that we certainly enjoy at our show, and we hope the audience feels too.
Oh yeah, I mean it's great, and it's just so much fun. The whole show. I'm curious about the summertime because this is the one show, and I have asked Jimmy about this in the past. It uses guest host all summer. Jimmy takes the summer off. The other shows don't do that. They never use guest host anymore, like Johnny Carson used to or whatever. Jimmy said maybe he's more secure than the other hosts. That was his answer. But Molly, does that hurt the show ratings wise or anything, or just keeps it going in a different way?
No, I think the ratings stayed pretty consistent, but it was truly based in Jimmy being tired. Honestly, when he decided to pick up 3 more years, he said, "I would love to do 3 more, but I need a little more time off." As you know, I mean, this show is a grind. At doing the show every single day and keeping up with the news and being on is a lot. And he said, "I can do it, but I need a little time with my family in the summers." And so we thankfully have gotten a lot of great talent eager to host a show. And I'll let these guys speak to that experience because I also have the summers off. So
Oh.
Danny and Gary, why don't you talk about the summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's really fun for us. We get great people to come in, and it kind of we get to give them sort of the talk show fantasy camp, a little bit where they come in, they do about 4 shows with us, and we've been lucky to have really great people, and I think it comes from just everyone loves Jimmy, and I think knows our staff is great just from being guests on the show. But I mean, we've really we've had some great one-offs. We've had some great people for a week, and I don't know. We enjoy it. It's a fun, different kind of thing doing that every summer.
Well, it's a lot of fun all year long on the show. Jimmy Kimmel Live. Thank you so much for joining us here on Contenders to talk about the show, and best of luck going forward. This is an election year. And also, happy 20th anniversary, guys. This is your
Thanks.
20th year.
It's
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
So
We're
cool.
tired.
It's great. Well, thank you so much. And coming up next, Molly will be joining me with some other producers of a little show called The Oscars, which she also was an executive producer on. And we're going to be talking about that here on Contenders. So stay tuned for that.